A number of experts in the UK became involved, who I cited in the chamber of the House of Commons, and all of them, in essence, say the same thing, which is this was not a murder or murders plural. This was suboptimal. The polite phrase is suboptimal medical care.
Last summer, of course, Lucy Letby was found guilty of murdering 7 babies and harming 8 others. Months on, the case against the 35-year-old serving 15 life orders continues to be contested. And today, a panel of medical experts say new evidence they've uncovered is significant in challenging what's come.
There would be no determination about innocence or guilt of the defendant. The panel is independent and worked under the agreement with Lucy and her lawyers that all findings would be released even if they did not favour the defendant.
That was Dr. Xu Li leading that team. Now, 3 appeal court judges have already reviewed a number of strands of evidence against Lucy Letby, and the Independent Criminal Case Review Commission, responsible for investigating potential miscarriages of justice, have started to assess this case. So what now? Let's first of all welcome Danny Shaw, policing and crime correspondent, who's on the line. Hello to you, Danny.
Good afternoon, John. Hi.
Good to have you, Danny. So, look, this Criminal Cases Review Commission has now said it's looking at this case. Why is that, Danny, and how encouraging is that to those who insist that she was wrongly convicted?
Well, when you've been convicted of a crime, you have an automatic right to appeal directly to the Court of Appeal. Now, Lucy Letby has tried to do that on 2 occasions, and on both occasions, her appeal has been unsuccessful. So the only route open to her is to take her case to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. This is the organisation based in Birmingham that deals with potential miscarriages of justice, and they have the power to refer her case back to the Court of Appeal.
Yeah.
But to do that, the Criminal Cases Review Commission has to be satisfied that there's a real possibility that the Court of Appeal will overturn the convictions. And so this is a long process now. Letby's legal team have submitted some papers to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. They will look at those submissions. It will take, I think, months, possibly 2 years or more before they reach a decision, because they tend to take quite a long time. They've got a huge caseload, and this is a very, very complex case, and there's a lot of detail to go through.
Right. In a moment, I'm going to talk to David Davis, the Conservative MP who is supporting that group and wants to have this case looked at again. But before, I want you to stay with us if you can, Danny. Just at this moment, from what you've seen, can it be objectively argued that the original trial and the appeal court judges were denied important evidence that might have ended in acquittal?
I think it's very difficult to say that objectively. I think what you can say is that some of the experts in this panel of 14 experts who've come up with these conclusions today, saying that none of the babies was murdered in their opinions, they were all natural death, they were all natural causes or through substandard care. What you can say is that this panel of experts have come up with some concerning findings that I think lend support to Letby's claims that she has been wrongfully convicted, but it will be for the Criminal Cases Review Commission in the first instance to look in detail at those claims, because what can't happen is simply the case being retried and retried and retried over and over again because another expert comes up with a different opinion, another expert ventures a separate opinion or judgment. That's not how the system works. Right. There's got to be some new evidence, or what has to be shown is that in some way the trial jury was misled or given the wrong information, or there was some legal direction that was wrong.
Okay.
So that's what the CCRC has to do. It has to look at what Dr. Xu Li and the others have come up with.
All right, Danny, do stay with us if you can. I want to now welcome David Davis, the Conservative MP. Welcome to you, David.
Hi.
Hi. Good to have you here. David. Now, look, clearly in the law, a case is made or it is not made. Someone is judged guilty or they are not. But at this point, can you tell me, David, that you are of the view that Lucy Letby was actually innocent, or are you saying the case against her was not proven beyond doubt? You see the distinction?
Well, I think the high probability is she's innocent. I mean, when we started this exercise, I mean, I read a 13,000 word piece in the New Yorker, which but was blocked by court order from publication here, and I raised the matter in the House of Commons, just say why is it blocked, and the side effect of this was I suddenly got calls from a whole series of extremely authoritative people, a past president of the Royal Statistical Society, a past president of the Royal College of Pediatric and Child Health, a number of professors, a whole series of people who are experts in medico-legal matters, in forensics, and so on. And each of them said to me, well, my bit's wrong. The statistician said the statistical argument was just rubbish, was bogus. The neonatologist said this does not reflect reality, and so on. And that's why I started to pick it up. But that just tells you it's a mistrial. It doesn't tell you it's a miscarriage.
No.
It doesn't tell you that she's actually innocent.
Yeah.
So I spent the 3 months of the summer. I wanted to get the transcript. I couldn't get it. It cost £100,000 to get it, so I couldn't afford that. So I went through every daily account of the trial to see if I could find one case where it was plain that she had murdered the child.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find one of those. That's what I was looking for. And later on, I got the transcript, and the same thing applies. So that's where we got to. And at that point, Mark McDonald became involved. Shu Lee became involved. A number of experts in the UK became involved, who I cited in the Chamber of the House of Commons, and all of them, in essence, say the same thing, which is, this was not a murder, or murders, plural. This was suboptimal. The polite phrase is suboptimal medical care.
Yeah.
And some of the babies might have survived if they had better medical care. We don't know that. But a contributory cause of their death was suboptimal medical care. It was not an intervention by a nurse, any nurse, let alone Letby. And that's the conclusion that we had today from Julie and his team.
Right. Now, we can't relitigate the case in detail in this conversation, but nobody saw, of course, Lucy Letby commits a crime. That was not witnessed. So what the prosecution relied on was an accumulation of circumstantial medical evidence, didn't they? How would you account for, as part of your argument, the fact that the medical advice that the prosecutors relied on and the judgment of the prosecutors compiling the case persuaded them that this was a case that could deliver a guilty verdict, which of course it did?
Yeah, well, to a very large extent. I mean, it's interesting, by the way, just as an aside, people forget that one person on the jury was not persuaded. I mean, all but one of these cases was ruled by 10 to 1. There was also another member of the jury who dropped out. It wasn't 100% response, so somebody was worried by it. But to a very large extent, you've got a huge sort of confirmatory bias going on. Very early on, there was a 3.5 day introductory speech by the prosecution. This is normal. It's not unusual in that sense. Who went through, he presented this argument, which I believe to be bogus, of showing Letby there for 7 deaths. Bear in mind, there were 17 deaths, but he didn't talk about that. There were 7 deaths, which he alleged were murders, and she was there for all of them, it was said. It turned out to be wrong. She wasn't there for at least one of them, possibly more. Then he went on to cite Dowie Evans's evidence. He's the expert witness, coming up with these theoretical ways she died. They died. I mean, air embolism, injecting air into the stomach, which most neonatologists think is silly. Whole series of mechanisms.
So bottom line is you believe that the medical evidence is open to dispute, and you and your those who have joined in this campaign are actively disputing it. Just briefly, lastly, from memory, David, I also recall, wasn't there some evidence that notes were found written by Lucy Letby to the effect, "I killed them," and others saying, "I am evil"? Now that would have weighed in the minds of the jury.
Well, that and other notes that were found, the medical notes and so on, all weighed in the minds of the juror, saying reinforcing the view that she was guilty. But that note you talk about, there was a later down that same post-it note, I think, there was a comment saying, why is this happening to me? I'm innocent. I've done nothing wrong. In the same note. Now, when the prosecution lawyer read out the extract of the note, he read out the first bit, not the second. Surprise, surprise. Similarly, she was seen to have kept a whole lot of medical records, some of which applied to the babies that died. Now, if you just looked at it ab initio, you might think, well, this is an incredibly conscientious nurse. She takes records home to look at them at home. She Googles them. Incidentally, by the way, it's a girl that lives on Google and social media, Miss Letby was. She didn't ever Google any of the techniques that are supposed to have been used to kill these children.
Okay.
Something surprising. Okay. So all told, I think we should go back to the Court of Appeal and be looked at properly with proper experts, the sort of experts we were talking about today.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts on that, David Davis. Briefly back to Danny Shaw, I think, still on the line. Just in a nutshell, Danny, what did you make of what you heard there?
Look, David Davis makes a very convincing case in terms of that this case has raised some really troubling issues. But what he can't do is substitute himself for the jury who sat through all those months of evidence and heard every single scrap of evidence and came to the conclusions they did. They found Lucy Letby not guilty on some charges. They couldn't agree verdicts on others, and guilty on a number of others as well. So they listen very carefully to the evidence. What you can't do is just kind of retry the case. You've got to be able to show, in order for her to succeed in any way, to show that the jury was misled, that it was given the wrong information, or that there is some new evidence that's come to light that cast doubt on the safety of her convictions.
Right, and that's
really important.
And that's where we are.
What the show.
And that's where we are in the process. Danny Shaw and David Davis, thank you.